what's up guys? Tim Little, Matt Allen. Welcome back to TacticalBassin. Today we're going to continue this buyer's guide series per your guys' request. We got so many requests to do a finesse fishing video, and we didn't really know if you guys meant like the actual gear or the rods and reels, so we're going to do both. Today we're going to do rods and reels, and we'll shoot a second part that will be followed up in the next few days. Will be all the worms and those sort of things. So the one wrench that got thrown into this video is Matt is just now getting back from Tennessee and Kentucky, that trip he did back east. So a lot of his gear is still on a truck being delivered. Right. So he raided my garage and grabbed some rods and stuff. A lot of the models won't be exact, but down below in the video description we'll link to the exact model for whatever technique we are talking about.
Perfect. I'll kick us off. First one, starting at the lower price points and coming up from there, Dobyns Fury. For the money, probably your most sensitive option out there. Right around that $100 range. In that price point, it's about as sensitive as it's going to get. They're fantastic for the money. If I could only have one model, it would be the 702. That's the one that I like to throw. I've got a handful of them on the boat. It's a great all-around rod. It's stout enough to throw a shaky head, light enough to throw a drop shot. You can do a lot with it. I pair it up with an Ultegra. That's the reel that I put on it. We'll link you, again, everything down in the video description, but typically I would fish that with an Ultegra on it.
Yeah, and just like, you know, we've shot rod videos before. He's talking about a 702. What that means in the Dobyns line, that is a 7-foot 2-power rod. So a little bit lighter action, faster tip. It's really good for those finesse applications. Why don't you go ahead and talk about, most of my stuff's a little bit higher end. What you want to talk about?
The Zodius.
Yeah.
Second one would be a Zodius. This is a Shimano rod. You're stepping up in price a little bit, stepping way up in sensitivity. Now granted, this is a casting rod, but like we said, this is my exact equipment. They're more visual cues than anything. My gear's coming home. But that Zodius, I throw both the 7-foot and the longer 6-footers in the medium and the medium light. Very sensitive rods, very, very light in the tip section, which I like for drop shotting because you can see the bite before you necessarily even feel the bite. You see the change. We've talked about deflection before. That's a great rod for seeing that deflection. When I get to the Zodius, I do step up my reel. I go to a Stratex CI4 Plus, which I keep my spinning reels very, very simple. The Ultegra and the Stratex CI4 Plus are all that I use. So my lower end reels all get the Ultegra, or my lower end rods, my higher end rods, all, whether that's a $200 rod or a $500 rod, they all get a Stratex CI4 Plus. Although I have been playing with some new reels that we'll probably get into at some point. But for now, that's what I still have on all my personal rods.
Yeah, I'm sure I'll convince him to step into some really nice reels. Truth be told, guys, living here on Clear Lake, you know, growing up, me coming from the finesse side, that's mainly what I did. I grew up with a spinning rod and specialized more in the reservoir fishing and stuff. But really living here on Clear Lake, a lot of this stuff doesn't get used very much anymore, right, unless we do leave town and go hit up other lakes. So some of this gear I haven't even updated. You know, some of these reels, you know, I bought them 5-6 years ago for $300-400 bucks. They're still great reels, but there's been so many models since then have come out, but I just haven't
even taken the time.
Taken the time to upgrade. Right. So some of this stuff won't be active, but we will link to the current versions or the current models down below in the video description.
Right.
I'm gonna go back to a Dobyns. The 742, you want to talk about this one? I know you really like that rod.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite spinning reels, or spinning rods. Dobyns Champion Extreme, so the higher end Dobyns. Specific model is the 742. That's a 7'4" 2-power. Again, talking about deflection, that's a rod with a ton of deflection. Ultra light in the tip section. Not as sensitive as some of the other high-end rods. It's sensitive, but not as sensitive as some of the others. But because it deflects so well, it makes up for it, and you get great hookups on those fish. I love that rod for the drop shot, for the tube, for the Ned, a handful of different things that I throw on that rod. And then again, the Stratex CI4 Plus, what I put on it.
Yeah, we're not all glide baits and swim baits and heavy baits. You know, a lot of this stuff we have 4, 5, and 6 pound test on. I'm gonna go with the new Shimano X Pride. Now, primarily, like I said before, I've been finesse fishing for a long time, and I went out and I bought the nicest stuff that I could afford, because finesse fishing is, that's that one category where you want to pay and buy the nicest gear that you can afford. Now, don't break the bank, but work up and purchase the nicest rod. You don't need the nicest reel, but the nicest rod that you can afford, because sensitivity is a must in these applications. But this rod right here, this is the new Shimano X Pride. For the price point, I was blown away with how light these rods are and how sensitive they are. You know, coming from using other brands and stuff, when I first picked up this rod, it took me a little bit to get used to feeling the drop shot weight banging on rocks and stuff, because it is so sensitive. This is a 7-foot medium heavy. It's a good universal rod. You could throw a weightless worm on it, a senko. You could throw a darter head on it. You could throw a little heavier drop shot on it. But if you're going to go with one rod in this line, the 7-foot medium medium is a good universal rod that you can throw a lot of those finesse baits on. And this is a awesome rod for the price point.
Yeah, we both have that. I have that exact model. And it too is in transit. And I took it back there to fish with that rod. It's a great stick.
You guys have watched our videos for a long time. You know that I primarily use the Daiwa Fuego. At the time, like I said, 5 or 6 years ago, this was the reel of choice, and I still have them today. They're still buttery smooth. So we'll link down to a comparable model that is current right now.
Yeah.
But these are great reels.
Next one, I'm going to go. Ignore that it's a casting rod, because I'm still talking spinning right now. But Megabass Destroyer, again, another rod that's in transit, but spinning rod version. And I'll link the exact model below. But the Destroyers, if you want to go high end, or if you want to play with something outside of your norm, if you use a different brand and you just want to try one rod that's completely different and you've got the budget for it, the Destroyers are phenomenal. They are extremely sensitive.
Light.
They're extremely lightweight. It is probably one where I would pair a very different reel than what I normally use. That X-Sense that we played with comes to mind. If you've got a budget and you want to play with a new toy, the Destroyer paired with an X-Sense would be really fun. And it would look good. They're both matte black. They'd look really good.
It's gonna be a pricey combo, but again, it's like putting like low-grade fuel in a Ferrari. You know, you want to pair it up with light. I have a hard time because it does get expensive, but you don't want to put a mediocre reel on a super nice rod. But that X-Sense, you know, if the Stellas, I got a chance to, this year Matt and I got a chance to play with a lot of the higher end stuff that we haven't had a chance in the past to afford, you know. So
we finally just bit the bullet and did it.
And some of those high end reels are, don't touch them if you can't afford them.
Right. So. You know, and I actually, if you want to start thinking about another rod, I'll just talk here for a second about that. Because I did come from that swim bait side of things more than the finesse side. Tim came from the finesse side. We kind of met in the middle. I used to use pretty garbage spinning tackle and finesse tackle as a whole. And Tim was adamant that I should be buying higher end rods, which I've ultimately done because he was absolutely right. And I do think if you're going to put the money in one place, you put it in the rod before the reel. But there's a big difference in reels too. So if you're that guy, if you've got the room in the budget, I mean, there's a big difference. But if you don't have room in the budget, don't feel like you can't catch fish. You're going to catch fish just fine. But the guy who's got the budget, it's going to be lighter weight, might be a little more fun just to play with, you know. But both are capable of catching fish, but there definitely is a difference.
The next rod that I'm going to talk about, you guys can see, I mean, I've had this rod since before I had my bass boat. I mean, I fished from the shore with this rod. This is the G Loomis. This is the BSR 852. You guys have heard Matt talk about it. He's got this exact rod, but in an NRX version casting.
Yep.
I have caught so many fish on this rod right here. It's so sensitive, so light. I haven't went out and upgraded to the new versions, but if you guys are looking for a top of the line, a do-all rod, a worm rod, a light darter head rod, a light, even a finesse like a jig, like a little finesse jig, hair jigs, any of that stuff, anything between like 6 to 12 pound test, this 852 is an awesome rod. Super sensitive. Right here I got a nail weighted senko on there, but a weightless senko, skipping under docks. It's 7'2", or 7'1", sorry, 8 ounce to 3/8 ounce, 6 to 12 pound test. Awesome universal rod. No matter how long I'm fishing, I'll probably always have this model. It's just one of those must-haves.
Yeah. The last one that I'm going to talk about is literally the same rod, but in an NRX. I don't even know what NRX I picked up out of your garage, but I just grabbed an NRX. But the one that I use is that same, that 852, but I use it in casting, paired with an Aldebaran, paired with this reel. I tend to fish it on braid to leader, and we are going to get into line here in a moment as well. But that 852 in that NRX is out of this world. I love fishing it in a casting version because I can do so many things with it. I do everything from throwing a shaky head on it, to throwing a senko on it, to throwing a jerkbait. I was throwing it in one of the popper videos this spring. I mean, it's a little silly to throw a popper on an NRX, you know, throw on a topwater, but if you've got the rod, why not do it? And it really does fish all those things so well. That 852, whether we're talking NRX or GLX, is such a universal model. It's just one of those rods that does so many things so well. It's a really good choice.
Yeah, I haven't got into the casting. I have the 853 in casting. Oops. And I love this rod. I haven't got into the ultralight casting just because I have it in the spinning. I feel like growing up with that spinner, I don't know, I just feel more at home with the spinner rod with the lighter gear. But this next rod, 853, so pretty much the same version, just one power up. This again paired with an Aldebaran, you're putting a super high-end reel on an awesome rod. It just makes fishing that much more fun. I mean, this combo is so light. Again, braid to leader, 20 or 30 pound braid to 10 to 12, 15 pound fluoro leader. This right now I have rigged up with a drop shot, tungsten weight on there. So if I'm fishing out here on Clear Lake and I actually do want to throw a drop shot, this is typically what I'm going to throw, the 853.
You know, if I can chime in on that rod too, that's another universal model because there he's got it rigged up with a drop shot, and that really is what he's throwing on there. I have one flying home right now that I caught my 3 biggest fish on Dale Hollow on, and they were all on a 3/4 ounce jig on that same rod.
On the 853?
On the 853, yeah. Throwing a finesse football, so a smaller hook, but still a 3/4 ounce jig on the same rod that Tim's able to drop shot on. That says a lot about the rod. It's the 852 and 853 are just banner models.
Yeah, and for me, again, like I said in the beginning of this video, purchase what you can afford. This rod right here, this is another rod that I've had for probably 5 or 6 years. Again, it's just, for me, when I was tournament fishing, this was my go-to reservoir drop shot rod. This is the DSR 820. This is the ultralight GLX drop shot rod. I'm talking 4 and 5 pound test. Right now I have it rigged up with a drop shot, but 4 pound test with little hair jigs on it, little flies, little floating flies. Though that type of technique, this has got such a light tip on it. Those spotted bass, it's just a great finesse rod. I paired this up with the Shimano Sustain. This is the little 1000 series. Just trying to keep the weight down. You don't need a big spool when you're using 4 and 5 pound tests. But
right.
Yeah, braid to leader. But again, this was my go-to drop shot rod when I was tournament fishing.
Yeah. Now jumping over into line, let's move right across. We differ a little bit. The concepts are all the same. The actual specific models of what we're using are a little bit different. But we've had a lot of questions about line as well. So speaking specifically to finesse fishing, whether that's on a casting rod or a spinning rod, both of us typically spool braid and then put a leader on it. There are some exceptions to that rule, but the braids that we use, I think yours are they over there?
Yep.
The 2 that I fish the most are Suffix 832, which is what I've got on the vast majority of my really light rods. And then Power Pro Max Quattro I use as well because it's ultra thin for the different weights. Both of those though take a knot extremely well in that really fine line, and that's why I like to use those. But both great choices.
Yeah, I'm fairly close. I use the Sunline. I'll use the SX1 or the TX1. Some of the best finesse fishermen on the planet designed this line, Aaron Martins and Ayler. I've used it for years, and it's never done me wrong. So
yeah,
use that, or I will go with the Power Pro. You know, the 10-pound Power Pro. I get this, and if I'm throwing on a spinning rod, it'll be 12-pound. The Sunline's a little bit smaller than the Power Pro, but I'll go 10-pound in the Power Pro. And if I want to go like the high vis stuff, if I'm throwing a weightless senko and I'm throwing it out there and I'm watching my connection knot as like an indicator, I will go with the high vis yellow. But typically this is the braid that I use, one of the two.
I'm glad that you brought up the weights that you're using too, because I did tell you that I use two very different spinning reels. And on my higher end spinning reels, I use all 10-pound. On my lower end spinning reels, I use all 15-pound. And I've got a variety of reasons for that. But if you're going to be using lower end equipment, going to that little bit stronger braid will help because it is so thin. On a reel that's not put together as well, where they haven't put as much into it,
the drag,
you can nick. There's jumpy drag. There are issues you get into the lower end you get, where just a touch heavier braid makes all the difference. But if you're using higher end equipment, 10-pound is perfect.
Fluoro, for me, I keep it pretty much 3 models actually. Sunline FC Sniper comes in awesome sizes. You got the in-between sizes. You got like 7-pound or 5-pound, and if you don't want to throw 4 or 6, and then the Seaguar, the Brazek and the Invisex are, I mean, between those 3 that I just talked about, that has you covered for any of your finesse fishing.
Yeah. Now I use a little bit different. I use a Brazex as well. Here comes a bunch of the same horrible birds from another video. We'll let them fly by.
Hey guys.
Thank you, Canada geese. Sunline Assassin is the other one that I use a lot, both as a mainline or as a leader. And then the last one is Maxima Ultra Green. And I talk about Maxima a lot. Most of the country doesn't use mono. Most guys are using all fluoro. I discovered going tackle shop to tackle shop to tackle shop that nobody in Tennessee has good mono. I was blown away. But the reason why I use mono, I'll tend to go with lighter weights because it has so much stretch, so much give, and it does come in thicker diameters. But I've found that the knot strength is incredible compared to an equal fluoro. So if you're going really, really light and you're not in that like 40 foot of viz, like a lot of guys think they have clear water, right? They've got 10 foot of viz or 15 foot of viz. That's not crystal. 10 to 15 foot of viz, mono is awesome. Absolutely awesome. Just straight green mono, moss green. You are golden. It's when you get into that like 30, 40 foot of viz that you really have a problem. So if you can get away with mono, the knot strength is so much better. The stretch is great. It helps absorb those head shakes. I fish a lot more mono than people would expect until we get into that really, really clear water. And then I'm right there throwing fluoro as well.
Yeah, I don't do the mono thing. I've always done the fluoro thing, but I've seen it work and I can vouch for it.
Right, right.
So, all right, guys. Well, hopefully, you know, we kind of flew through some of these rod and reel combos. Unfortunately, we don't have the exact stuff here to show you, but again, down below in the video description, we'll have all that link for you so you can click on it and see pictures right to the specific models, the lines we use, and everything. If you guys are waiting to talk about worms or for us to talk about worms and gear and techniques, that will be in what I guess would be the video after this one.
Yep.
So hang tight, guys. We appreciate your support. If you guys have any questions or comments down below in the video, make sure in the comment section, ask those questions. We will try and get to them before Christmas. And if you guys have any more recommendations, you know, we are cutting it close. We're getting down to
it's crunch time now. We might be able to get 1 or 2 more in.
We've gotten so many recommendations, so we'll try and knock out these videos. But again, guys, thanks for the support. If you guys like the video, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and we'll talk to you soon, guys.